Welcome back to the Hardwood Hustle. Sam and I today are going to talk handling pressure, whether that's in the half court traps or whether that's press breaks. But a lot of coaches, a lot of teams get frustrated with this one. You know, you may be prepared in a lot of aspects of the game, but pressure gets you, whether it's early, whether it's late, or whether it's throughout the game. So excited to talk about that today. Coaches, if you're looking to go a little bit deeper, we got some free resources for you. Go check out pgchustle.com. That's pgchustle.com. Just got a couple free resources. We're going to change those up over time, but looking to go a little bit deeper, take a look at that. Sam, excited to talk about handling pressure today. You've done some talks on this at clinics before. We've obviously focused on this and our PGC coaching course. We've done that. Interesting topic, and I think it's like not the sexiest topic, but a lot of times I've seen games won or lost here in this area, and I've won or lost games in this arena too, and I'm sure you have as well. Let me get your opening thoughts on handling pressure.
Yeah, opening thoughts on handling pressure are it's really important, especially at younger levels, and as you move up, as players get more skilled, TJ, they can handle pressure. But if you're a high school, middle school, youth club coach, this is one that you probably most coaches listening need to be more adept, need to be more competent at teaching. But then I think at the college level too. And let's be clear real quick on pressure. We're not talking about just full court pressure, but pressure in the half court and how to be ball strong and how to pass versus pressure, how to receive and get open versus pressure. Those are my opening thoughts.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, gosh, sometimes we just feel like players just need to be good enough. Like, well, just handle it, just throw it to the open person, and there's a lot of things, whether it's in your scheme or whether it's in your development of your players, that make people more effective at handling pressure. And to be honest with you, I think sometimes it's figuring it out. We've had different teams, different ways handle pressure different ways based on who our point guard was, based on who was inbounding the ball. We've changed who's inbound the ball. Before we go into systems and strategies, let's just talk about skills necessary. Like, what do you need to be developing in your players to be able to handle pressure better?
You said skills that they need. Yeah, I mean, well, we talk about these at PGC a lot, which is peaking and being powerful. So the two P words, peaking, that's seeing the rim, seeing court vision. A lot of players get covered up in pressure and they lose vision of their teammates. They're unable to see who their next teammate available is open. They allow the pressure to own them instead of owning the pressure. So that's a phrase I would use, like, don't let the defender own your space. You need to own it. I was just at one of our camps last week, and our directors and coaches were teaching what we call PGC POA. I don't know if you're familiar with that terminology, but protect, own, and attack. Protect, own, and attack. So can you protect the ball? Can you own the defender, own the space? And then how do you attack that aggressive defender? So I think, TJ, that's important. You know, if I went one step further, also, like we talk about 3 points of contact and getting powerful, getting elbows out. This is when you're getting pressure up into your space. You then got to go. That's whether you've picked up your dribble or you haven't used your dribble. And so that's important to distinguish between a player position and a power position. Player position for me is what the old school way of triple threat. So when there's nobody in your space, just be a player. Like, I can shoot it, I can drive it, I can pass it. When they get in your space, you got to go powerful with it so that you can handle it. And like I said, either attack off the dribble or attack with the pass.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that you got to attack on the mental aspect of it as well. I mean, I remember, I saw this for the first time a long time ago, and at one of our PGC sessions, and we give one of the players, a $20 bill or $100 bill, and say, do you think you can protect us for 15 seconds with two people attacking you? And it's kind of just a joke, but the two people come up and they're ready to start, go try and get the ball from them. If they get the money, if they get it. And the point is that basketball, you're not allowed to go just jump on somebody and steal the ball and whatever. And we talk a lot about pressure is a facade. Like, so many times pressure elevates, whether it's your heart rate or your mind or whatever. And so many more mistakes are made under pressure. And so I do think attacking the mental part of it is really important to understand. Like, look, they cannot come in here and swing at you and foul you and do whatever. You have the right to own your bubble. And the player, kind of going back to your POA, the player has to understand that you definitely have the right to protect your space. And they're not allowed to go just hit you. That's why, you have 3 points of contact, you change levels, and they can just reach in there and do things. And then, I think those are like the powerful things you need to do. And then I think a second part of that is, how do I escape pressure with, the right dribbles, handles, like pullback dribbles, attacking people based on their point of attack. I think those things are really important. Not playing in the manure strip, which is a long story in itself, but really the outer 3 feet of the court. So many times you just play on the sideline tight and 2 or 3 turnovers happen a game because you're not using the whole court. You're playing in tight space. That's an important thing. But I really think getting over to a player, the mindset of pressure can be a facade. In the half court, we are trying to engage 2 defenders so that we can kick the ball to an open player and get a good shot. I mean, honestly, that's what we're trying to do all the time. And flipping that upside down and saying, if they want to come pressure you and trap you, they're engaging 2 defenders to the ball without you even having to create that advantage. So you now have 4-on-3 somewhere. So how do you protect it and get it out of there? Because you're going to create a good situation for your team. So flipping that mindset was really big for me, and I really trying to help my players flip that mindset as well.
And build on that, another thing we talk about is fear, and that's false evidence appearing real. And you're right, so many players, they have a mindset of fear, and they're afraid to turn it over. They're afraid of the pressure. And some of that, TJ, comes from you got to help your players develop the skills that allow them to be successful. And we even, teams I've been coaching the last few years in the winter. In the wintertime, I've been in the middle school space working with players, and we talk about in huddles and pregame and halftime. We talk a lot about playing offense, like 1, 2, 3 offense. And the point is, we're going to be on the on offense and defense. We're going to be on the attack. We're going to be the aggressor. We're going to bring the fight. We're going to punch in the mouth. I think, and the bigger point here is, it's a mindset, to your point, that you got to help your players with, and it comes from the coach instilling it, speaking it, giving it. Let me back up. Instilling confidence, talking about being confident, aggressive, and then working on things in practice that will give players the confidence they can go out there and do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's underestimated, Sam. I would say that's the number one thing that's underestimated, is just like, so many times the aggressive team wins.
Yeah.
And if you're just going to protect the ball, I mean, this is one of our philosophies, has been this for a long time. Like, you press, you pay. Like, we are trying to attack you on the other end. If a team I knew was just going to pull the ball out every time we press, like, I would probably just press more, like just take free shots at the ball. So you have to understand, if you're just trying to break the press and hold it, I think that's going to make a team more aggressive because they know you're not going to hurt them on the back end. So I do think that the idea of, and I get it, you got to control the pace of the game. We're trying to figure out what's the right pace for your team to play. But a team that's going to press, that just getting free looks at it, they're going to just keep pushing the pressure. They're just going to keep coming at it. And your mindset as a team, I like it. You have to somewhat flip it to an offensive mode and kind of transition to scheme and philosophy. I like to be in aggressive modes in our scheming of breaking pressure. I'll talk about that in a second. But any more thoughts on just different mindset or skills players need to have before we talk scheme a little bit?
Well, last thing you said triggered the final thought, which is, as a coach, get excited, a real excitement, not some fake enthusiasm, but excited when you're going against a team that's going to pressure you, and let your players feel that and hear that and say, "Hey, this is a great opportunity. We're going to get a lot of good looks. We're going to handle their pressure. We're going to break pressure in the full court, the half court, and let's go attack and be aggressive." Because I think you see it a little. There's been a shift over the last 5, 10 years, but back older school would have been like breaker pressure. Okay, set up the play. We beat the pressure, bring it back to half court. Now set up a play, and that plays into a pressure team's hands because they can play a little more risky, a little more gamble, and know they're not going to get hurt. So that's my final thought on that.
Yeah. And look, there's a reason they don't press a lot in the WNBA or the NBA, right? Like, I mean, one of the big reasons I don't think they press is there's too many good ball handlers. They're not just going to cough it up. I mean, you'd be surprised. Actually, I've seen some teams press, and I've seen some NBA players do that where they've coughed it up because they're probably so not used to it. They haven't been pressed, maybe once out of every 82 games, just for sure a minute here and a minute there, and they will make mistakes just like any other player. But the flip side of that is over the course of the game, they're really hard to press because they're not just going to cough up the ball. They're not going to panic. There's too many good ball handlers. They can throw the ball too well on passes connecting with good length. And in college, you don't see it at the high levels, at Power Fives very much. I think same thing, big, strong ball handlers, not panicking, whatever. And I don't know, maybe it should happen more. We've had some teams at the D2 level have had a lot of success playing a really upbeat style with a lot of pressure. But I see it a lot in high school. I see a lot of teams that bring the pressure, and I do think they're tough because they're the more aggressive team, and the aggressive team often has a lot of success. Now, when you flip it to the offensive side, that
Well, hey,
mind.
one quick thing on that. I think Rick Pitino brought when he left Kentucky, went to the Celtics. He brought that to the NBA. Didn't find success in the full court pressure, but he won a national championship at Louisville playing full court pressure. He was playing that guard. They were picking up full, dropping back into their matchup, and it was tough. And then you saw Fairleigh Dickinson, right? They beat Purdue and 2 years ago as a 16. And so, yeah, I think at the Power Five you don't see it as much, but there is a place for it if you do it well. And then we've talked before at the D2 level with Nova Southeastern, they won a national championship just 2 years ago playing that style. So you can win at a high level. I think at the pro level you see it less, but even in the playoffs this year, saw teams cough it up late when they got pressured. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I think preparation, mindset, and I think when we talk about actually breaking the press, just scheme wise, I think there's a couple decisions you have to think about. The first one is I think about who's bringing the ball in. I think oftentimes we underestimate that first pass. Just somebody that's making good decisions. We've done this before where we've had, like, let's just say we had our 4-man bring it out because we wanted them to trail, but it was fine 80% of the time. But then we came up against a team that pressed and they weren't great at making those decisions. I mean, it can be small things. And I think you need to help players develop this or just watch them. A lot of times they were throwing the ball late. The player would break open and they would wait, and then throw it. And it was just one of those things like, hey, as a coach on the sideline, I'm like, why are you not throwing it? They're open. But then some players just process differently. And so I think getting the right person to inbound the ball is the first thing that I would think about. And you have to think about how that affects all of your systems and schemes. Are you trying to run in transition, inbound the ball with a 4 because you have a trail stretch 4? That's one thing. But then all of a sudden you face a team that pressures you and puts the press on. Do you want that same person throwing the ball in bounds? And I think you have to think all the way through that, Sam, because all of a sudden you're a different team when a team presses you. Now you change what you're doing. A different person's throwing the ball in. That might be what you need to do, but you also, I try to make my team as seamless as possible. And so I think, that's a decision though. That's an important decision.
yeah, I agree. That's what I had in my notes. You want your press offense to fit well in your transition offense, so you don't have to do wholesale changes. And yeah, because it's just easier for players to pick up on. You don't have to change. It's simple is better. We know slow meat, slow feet, right? So we need to let our players play fast and aggressive and instinctive, and the way we do that is keep things aligned well.
Yeah. Yeah. But and look, you might get to that situation where you haven't been pressed in 10 games and it's working fine. And all of a sudden you get pressed and that inbounder's not the right person to be bringing the ball in against pressure. The earlier you can figure that out, the better. And then I think the second thing is availability of the first pass. Like, look, there are certain players, like Dick DeVenzio says in one of his books, good players are always available. And I say that probably 20 times a year to my team, because people, it's easy. Like a guard will just want to post somebody up, throw it over the top. They just get lazy. And then there's a turnover there, whatever. I'm like, look, good players always are available. They're always in a spot to get open. They know how to get open. They know how to use their footwork and, spend a lot of time on that. And we work at that in our PGC course when we talk about handling pressure, how somebody gets open in straight lines. You see this all the time where players just dance left, right, left, right. And then, the inbounder thinks they're breaking right and they break left. There's one turnover. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden they post up because they get a little bit tired. There's a second turnover. Like these things are little, but they're big. And so playing in straight lines, left, right, or, north, south, or east, west, like one of those two things, change your directions because you're trying to get the person denying you. If you start taking crazy angles, they start cutting those angles off. That's what good defensive pressure teams do. So you have to take tight angles to get available. And that first or second inbounder being somebody that's always available, I think is another important thing. Because look, I think about this against pressure all the time. If you can inbound the ball safely, and you can get it out of the first trap safely, you should have numbers, right? And so like you don't even have to go beyond that. Yeah, if you can do those first two things, and the third part of that is, when somebody gets trapped, there's always three available receivers. There should be one back, one up ahead, and one to the middle. So safety back, whatever. And so, so many times you can see this where, you only have one available receiver or two receivers. And the numbers game doesn't always play out that way if you don't have three available receivers. I think three puts pressure every single time. And so you want your players to think about after the first trap, be available. So I'm gonna back that up. A good decision maker on the inbound, a good receiver of the ball that can get it out of the first trap, three available receivers, and then attack. And if you can do that, no matter what the pressure is, you can just win those first three steps. You got a good chance to get a good look.
Yeah, I'll build on that. Put some language around what you're saying. So most players play like a squirrel. In the road, you're driving down the road and the squirrel runs out and it kind of goes back and forth and you're about to hit it because it doesn't make up its mind. Like be a deer, not a squirrel. What's a deer? When a deer runs out while you're driving, the deer doesn't stop. It just runs, right? So the deer just commits. The squirrel runs out there, looks at the car, and starts doing all this dancing. And a lot of younger players do that. They don't. I think TJ offense is a lot more about working smart than working hard. I think defense, it's more about working hard. You got to be smart on defense too, but you got effort's going to trump intelligence. Where on offense, intelligence often trumps effort. So that's one thing. You got something real quick on that?
Well, yeah, I like those too. I would never use those words simply because I can't. I don't. This is maybe a little known fact, but I can't actually say skrill.
Squirrel.
Skrill.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I have a few words I can't say. I can't say that one. Some of that, but that the actual animal that you're talking about
Yeah.
is a good description how you see a lot of, especially at the younger ages, how you see him play against
Yeah.
press.
Well, let's not go through all the words that you have a challenge with right now. But so the second thing is the three receivers. So we talk a lot about vertical, safety, and middle. You want a vertical threat, you want a middle outlet, and you want a safety outlet. And then where's the fourth player? Send them down the road. Dick DeVenzio called them, the goon, send them to the goal, so you can throw the long pass. And then when you're getting trapped and you want to be engaged with two defenders, but not married to them. So ideally, you're getting rid of the ball before those two defenders are on top of you. But if they get on top of you and you have a live dribble, that's where pullbacks are successful. If you don't have your dribble, you got to work on step throughs and fakes to move the trap so you can get the ball out while going back to what we started with power position. And then the fourth thing I'd mention is, again, I think you alluded to it, is the 4 versus 3 mentality. Once we pass out of the trap, we have a 4 versus 3 advantage. We need to keep it and we need to go get a great shot.
Yeah. Like I actually think of this like step by step. And, if we were to walk through all that, like a good decision maker on the inbound, your most available receiver for the first pass, somebody that doesn't panic under that first trap. When you get it out of the first trap to one of those three available receivers, attack. If you don't get numbers in attack on that one, utilize your pullback dribble, reverse it one more time, and attack the second side. We never attack a third. Like we're always attacking the first time out as a first reversal or the second reversal because you don't really have 10 seconds. You only have 10 seconds. So it's that first or that second reversal that you're trying to go, and somebody needs to get the ball downhill and put pressure on them. And so, hey, a good first pass, you might be on defense for a second just to make sure that you get the ball out of the trap, and then it's all offense. And you're pushing and you're trying to get those numbers, and you can always circle back out and not play it. But I just think you always have to look for that easy opportunity when you get the ball out of the pressure. Now, here's a couple things, Sam, that I think are also important for coaches to know. Your alignment, and so like I always put somebody on the opposite block right by the rim because they are a layup away from really hurting you. And I want to stretch the back end of the pressure, right? I also, my favorite way to break the press, one on the opposite block, another player on the opposite corner, like when I want to be really aggressive, because it does make them make some decisions. Now we're just playing, we only have three guys up. This is another thing that I think sometimes causes a problem. When we go break pressure, people bring up five people into the back court, and they're going to be more aggressive with the people they bring up. And now you're having to play in a shorter space. I like the idea of stretching the defense with at minimum one person underneath the basket on the opposite goal. So they have to account for those.
Sorry,
I'd rather,
we're talking about like a zone type pressure, right?
yeah. I mean, zone, but even man, I honestly don't attack man or zone that much differently. Like
Because well, in a man situation, oftentimes you're looking to clear out and get it to your best point guard or ball handler, or against the player who's getting guarded by the weakest, and just
yeah.
attack that way.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like so man, yeah, if we got a point guard that can handle it, we just want to get the ball in bounds and get down the floor and space you out. If we have a bad matchup, we want to get it to the best matchup. So maybe kick it back to our four who's a ball handler and have them bring it up and start our offense. I think it's important for coaches to have an option for somebody else to start your offense besides the point guard, so you're not fighting to get in your offense, whether it's just a quick ball reversal or however they need to get you into it. Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, another thing I like against man is inbound the ball, sprint up, turn and set a ball screen. We'll play off a ball screen for 80 feet. I really like putting pressure on people, in that man setting. But either way, man or zone, I'm stretching the floor. Like I'm not playing 5-on-5 in a 40-foot square.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
I'm sorry to interject, but I would say, so going back to your first thing about putting two down, right, and throwing like that work against zone prep, that works at the college level. I will say, pre-high school, maybe early high school, players don't have the strength to make that 80, 70, 90-foot pass.
Yeah. Well, I would say we very seldom ever make the 80-foot pass. My whole reason I would do it is I'm trying to play 3-on-3,
Yeah.
or I'm trying to play
You
four
want
on
them to
four.
drop their defenders back.
Yeah, I want them to drop their defenders. Now, the corner guy over there shooting threes, if they want to put two people back with them, look, think about this for a second, the numbers game. You put two people back on the far end, put them in the two opposite corners. If they send defenders back with you, then you are playing 3-on-3. When you get that ball in and they go trap the first pass, if they take away the back pass, throw it over your head. Somebody's open at half court, wide open. If they take away the middle, just throw it behind you and attack. And so it's so much easier to make a read in 65 feet of court, 3-on-3, than it is to make a 5-on-5 read in a 40-foot box. So the whole point they're trying to make is just like spacing. Now, if you send two back and they only send one back there, you might want to move that other defender up to half court to be able to give a third pass or whatever. But if they're going to send people back with your guys, if I send three back and they send three back with me, then I'm going to send three back. But I just think too many people make the mistake of putting too many people up and then you're playing in tighter spaces with quicker decisions, which I think oftentimes leads to turnovers.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, yes, great point and well noted. When you're getting man pressure, occasionally bringing up that 1-4 high look across the free throw line, I think has advantages for some quick runouts, maybe steal a 2 to 4 points. Or TJ, if they're in hard pressure denial, we'll sprint our half court guys up, hopefully bringing two defenders and then run out. And that keeps them a little more honest because now it relieves a little bit of pressure on your guards who have to work so hard.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so we do run the 1-4 up occasionally and run the corners. I mean, sometimes we'll put two at the elbows and two at the half court, and just run our elbows deep and bring our half court people up just to get the ball in bounds. So I do think you need to ask yourself, how advanced do we need to to get the ball in?
Yeah.
How much we need to work, and also late game situations when they're trying to foul you, having opportunities, like having different formations. One that's become kind of popular lately is the whole four wide receivers on the baseline, and you send them out on passing routes. And I don't think there's anything magic about that 1-4 across, 1-4 flat, a diamond. I don't think there's any magic about it. What it does is the defensive team is less likely to have practiced those formations. What do we do in that situation, right? And so then there's a level of communication and switching and doing all the things. So I do think they're effective because they just couldn't have practiced against every type of, inbound.
Let me just flip it for a moment over to let me make a case for why you might want to be a pressing team. So talking about why you might want to be a pressured defensive team. And this is one I've put a lot of thought into over the last few years and put on paper. And so, one, your players are going to be in better shape when they're playing full court. Two, there's better accountability in teaching and defense. It requires more effort, more accountability. Three, you have more depth. And I don't know, you and I talked about this maybe a few months ago because I think you were considering changing your style. I don't know where you're at with it now, but so more depth. You play now. If you only have six good players and 7 through 10 is a huge drop off, probably don't want to do this. But when you play more depth, TJ, I think you have better chance for better culture. If you're playing 10 players, 10 plus minutes, and your top players playing 27, 28 minutes, like yeah, your best players may want to play more, but you're going to have more players engaged in what's going on because they're getting, heavy game minutes. And then a fourth reason you may want to press is, well, I'd say like fourth and fifth are tied. When you press every day in practice, you don't have to be like when you go against a pressing team, like, all right, guys, we got to work on handling pressure. No, you do it every day. You're used to it. And then the fifth one is when you press every day, your players have to make more decisions. Why? They got to learn how to handle a trap. They got to learn how to, like, is this player coming? When you have to make more decisions, your basketball IQ increases. When you when your basketball IQ increases, you're getting smarter. When you get smarter, you're a better team. You're going to win more games.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. I mean, a lot to consider when you're deciding how you're going to play defense, if you're going to pressure or not pressure. And the other thing is, I always thought this was interesting. I don't remember who it was, where it was. You and I might have been at a clinic before that they asked Jim Boeheim how much they practice zone because they play all zone defensively. And I think his answer was something like 10%. Like they play man to man and practice all day long.
Yeah.
And so I've actually thought about that on the pressure side of it. What if 60% of our practice was pressuring, even if we didn't do it all the time, just so that you would get better at all the things that you just listed? I mean, that's an interesting to think about just from a practice standpoint.
Yeah. You're talking about the emphasis on pressuring, but maybe not doing it in games, but doing it in practice, just so you get better offensively. Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. I don't know if I would want to spend 60% of my
Yeah,
day.
I don't know what the right number is. I just was thinking about that scenario, like you know, most teams I would say probably don't do it enough, me included, probably working on that pressure just from a standpoint of the things you list, like more decisions, more, getting more comfortable with pressure in practice. I just think if there's a shift of a percentage that could go that way, I think it probably would help your team more than it would hurt your team.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I agree with you. At the end of the day, I think it is a definitely a personality and mindset decision of the coach. Who are you as a coach? What's your personality? I kind of fall back on this in my coaching career is like, I don't want to be the coach who's trying to catch up or trying to adjust to the other team. I want to make the other team adjust to us. I want to be the aggressor. I want to be the attacker on offense, on defense, and I want our players, more importantly, to have that mindset that will serve them. Whether I'm working with a middle school, high school, college kid, I want them to think aggressive, attack, and smart, not just like run around like a crazy person. So I think that when you're making these decisions in terms of the defensive side or like, what do you want your players? What type of belief system mindset do you want them to have? And we've already given you some tools on things. I mean, obviously, you would need to build out some drills that work on the skills. But yeah, that's where I go with it, TJ.
Yeah. Well, a couple of last thoughts here, outside the box things a little bit. I've had two different point guards over my career that were just really quick, that were like a one-man press break. And we've run that before where we would, our one press break. And some teams might have this where it's their best player, they handle the ball, make the best decisions. And we would inbound the ball and we would go three flat on the baseline, one in the block, two in the corners. And we would inbound the ball and you just break the press off the dribble. And if you get in trouble, the inbounder is going to be somewhere around behind to come bail you out. And, honestly, we used that for like 3 seasons with one of our point guards. We just never brought people up, totally went on the offensive, and it really messed with people because if you got a point guard that's really good decision making, pull back dribbles, they can attack the right person, go through, like that's, sometimes they were better off rather than passing it, just dribbling it, through that. I know not everybody loves that, but it was effective for us for a few years. So a permanent middle is another decision you want to make. Some people like to run cutters, different flashing middles, or do you want a permanent middle? That's another decision. And what do you want that middle person to be able to do? Is it turn and attack? Is it turn and kick the ball opposite? I think the one thing we didn't talk about is role identification. We can scheme it on a board all day long, but if the person who's the bailout in the middle doesn't know how to make decisions, or the back person can't attack the pressure, or whatever, each one of the players needs to know with high clarity, what do you want me to do when I catch the ball? You want to eliminate them having 20 decisions. You need to say, here's your two options when you catch the ball, and you'll have less turnovers because of clarity. And I think giving them good role identification versus the press is also really important.
Yeah, that's a good one. The middle one, we didn't go in depth on that. I lean towards a permanent middle. But yeah, rotating your flashing middle, I think that's a good point you made there that we didn't cover. So that's one to think about. Yeah, role clarity is like everything, whatever you're doing, right? It's clear, great clarity is going to lead to much better results. So high clarity, high performance, that's what I was looking for. So I like that too.
Yeah. Hey, well, there's a lot of things that go into breaking presses. One of the things we want to start doing on these episodes is answering some questions, like a question each episode that a coach sends in. So we'd love to hear your questions. I mean, you could hit us up on social, or you could also, on the app, you can go in there and there's a place to send questions or comments. We'd love for you to send those. Those go to Lisa, and then we can cipher through those questions and either start or end an episode answering a question, either from a previous episode or just a question that you want attacked. Even that question might be so big that it leads to an episode. Look, we're just here to serve and to help. We just want to help you enjoy coaching more. We want you to be more successful in coaching. So any of these ways that we can. So if you got questions, make sure you send them to us. Don't forget to also check out pgchustle.com. It's got some free resources for you there. Coaches, really appreciate and value what you're doing. Hope we're serving you. Want to be connected in more ways if possible. So if you got a question, send that in. Check out PGC Hustle. Would love to spend more time with you. Thanks for joining today's episode on handling pressure. He is Sam Allen. I am TJ. We are the Hardwood Hustle.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Hardwood Hustle, where we believe in the value of a coach. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Hardwood_Hustle to stay up to date on the latest episodes and share your thoughts with our coaching community. From the Hardwood Hustle team, thanks again. We can't wait to be with you again next week.